We are live. Welcome to my video. This is going to be my spoiler-free review of the 2014 video game Chronology. Now, I understand this was released on the iOS as well as the PC. I played it on the PC. Knowing that it was also a mobile game does explain certain things. As far as I can tell, the game is rated E for everyone or something along those lines. Certainly, it can't possibly be mature. So this video will also, I'm not going to be saying anything mature in this video. It's going to be a very immature video. I mostly love this game. I think I already said there will be no spoilers, so yeah, basically you play as an inventor, inventively named the inventor, who wakes up one day to realize the world has ended, and he travels between the before the world has ended and the after, and you can do this at will, just the press of a button. And let's see. Yeah, you encounter this snail that can stop time, and yeah, together you work to find out exactly what it was that happened and prevent it. And it's fairly straightforward puzzle platformer. The inventor can jump, run around. The snail can attach to any surface as long as he, starts on a flat horizontal one. But, he can end up upside down. He can be sticking to a vertical surface. You can jump onto the shell of the snail, and in fact sometimes you'll jump onto the and he'll move you up or down, and then you can jump from there. That more or less covers the when you travel between the two between the before and after, you will see that there are certain things that are different, and sometimes you'll have to jump, you'll have to jump into the air and then mid-air change between the two times, which was a fun mechanic. It's not like the very first. There's similar in. Let's see. I want to say it was the PC version of Forgotten Sands: Prince of Persia. But one thing that, before I talk too much more about gameplay, I do want to say one thing I think really works here is the themes and the way that they are communicated through the gameplay. I wouldn't quite put it on the level of Overloop, but that one's going to be difficult to top for some time, in my opinion. But basically, throughout the game, it is impossible to ignore, no matter how much you play it with half your attention, if that. There is definitely a theme of time changing things, and apparently the original title was Time Changes Everything. You move through these areas and you see how, because again, you have to travel between these two periods in order to get, you cannot get very far. You're not gonna, the very first time you travel in time is very early in the game. So, it communicates very clearly what was and what will be what was can greatly affect what will be, and it, yeah, you know, like I mentioned, like kids can play this, and they can take away from it. You know, what we do right now changes what, you know, happens in the future. Like in real life, we don't have time machines, you know, and you know, because of that, sometimes time travel stories can fall flat, because it's this thing of like, well, you know, what can we do? And it's not about what can we do now to change the past. It's about, you know, right now is technically the past of the future. It's what we do now to change the future, instead of despairing over things we didn't do in the past that have led us to this situation. Like, obviously it's important to acknowledge there are problems in the present, but whenever you have a problem, it's best to try to focus on what you can do instead of just letting it drag you down about what has gone wrong. And I'm not saying that's easy, but it is necessary. And let's see, I think that more or less covers that theme. So another major theme here is this idea that science is good if it is tempered with ethics, and otherwise it is bad. And that's, again, a really, really important message to communicate to kids, to future generations. You know, the world was ended by a man who thought too much and felt too little, as Chaplin would have put it. And let's see, that might more or less cover, yeah, the two time periods are, they do a good job of making them distinct, and what's the word, the way that it somewhat remind me of the what's it called, Prince of Persia. I swear it's not just that I'm always thinking about those games, but I am. Prince of Persia, Warrior Within, that's the one. You know, with jumping between two different time periods. One of them is very, very fancy and fresh and new, with the technology we see being, like, yeah, brand new. And then the other one, the technology is rusted and old and worn, and there's plants everywhere. Like, nature has started reclaiming, or is pretty well in the process of reclaiming, you know. And let's see, I think that does very nicely. Yeah, the game, it's one of those things where it starts out not particularly difficult and kind of more focused on conveying, like, it really, really wants you to use the time travel. There's a number of puzzles very early on that genuinely do just boil down to, you know, travel between the two different times, and there's maybe something to do in one of them, and that's gonna change something in the other, and you can now, you know, proceed. And again, since it communicates the themes, I do think there's some good there. Right. I meant to say at the start, I got this on sale, and I definitely also recommend. I don't think this has quite enough to offer to warrant full price, I'm sorry to say. Now, let's see, what was the other thing that I wanted to say with that? Yeah, a lot of the time it is fairly simple and straightforward, and then, like, near the end, it starts to really turn up the intensity and difficulty on the puzzles. And ultimately, I would say a child probably could play all the way through this. It might not be the best choices, like the very first time they play one of the tougher of these. Like I would recommend, well, Overloop is not really for children, but something along those lines, in part because it saves more frequently. If in this game, if you get to the end of a level but you can't quite finish it, you know, if you leave the level, you'll have to start all over. So it's not the best for, and some of the toughest parts are at the end of levels, so it's not the best first game, but that's fine. Just FYI, neutral statement. Now, a lot of the time, right, something, yeah, a lot of the time you can brute force, you know, I don't really recommend it. It's again just, there were puzzles where it got close to me actually just accidentally solving, and that's too bad. Overall, I would say I did ultimately always know what I was doing, but I wouldn't rule out some people might end up just like accidentally doing a thing. Just, you know, the game encourages experimentation, because anytime you die, and that is something where I will say, you know, with Overloop, if the original dies, if the player character dies, you do have to start over from a checkpoint. Perhaps that's also part of why the two games say differently. In this one, no matter what happened, I've seen some people say it glitched and they got stuck in a part that I can kind of see how it could happen. It never happened to me. I don't know if I was just lucky. Otherwise, maybe it needed like some kind of button that you could press to force you to respawn. But yeah, if you do something that triggers the inventor's death, you will just respawn very close, like right before. If you miss a jump, you respawn right before the jump, for example. So yeah, you know, there's not really anything wrong with just experimenting. Although again, I saw some people say they accidentally, you know, did something they weren't supposed to, and the game wasn't prepared, so it didn't know how to react. Didn't happen to me. Maybe I was just lucky. But let's see. I suppose that does cover that entire thing. It is definitely a game where I do quite appreciate. You know, in Overloop, you're basically always looking for the switch or lever or the like, and then, you know, yeah, basically, like in both of them, you're moving from left to right. You can move back the other way, but it tends to be, you know, puzzles are very localized. You're not running around with a full inventory, whatever. But yeah, you find something impassable and then you look for some solution. In Overloop, actually, some of the time, before you even reach the impassable point, there'll be a switch or lever or the like. This one, a lot of the time, the thing you need to proceed is actually unique to that area, though it might use... It tends to use mechanics that you use elsewhere in the game. Like, multiple times you'll have to, you know, jump into something to knock it down, and then you can manipulate it or pick it up or something. But a lot of the time, the thing you're supposed to knock down is different. So you aren't just like what's the word, metagaming and just looking for a switch or lever. You're looking for something that maybe you could knock down, and I do appreciate. I think it does help distract from the fact that, you know, at the end of the day, it's a game. It's mechanically relatively simple. Right. Some people really hate the voice of the snail. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I can see it. It doesn't talk that much. considering the length, I really didn't think it was a big deal. And I mean, overall, it's not, the game isn't like outright childish, I wouldn't say. It's just child friendly. Like, you know, if we're talking like game with childish elements, you know, I love Beyond Good and Evil, but that game definitely has some elements that are way more childish than this one. Yeah, let's see, I do think, with the possible exception of the time travel itself, some of the things you can do in this game that are necessary for puzzles didn't quite get enough use, even considering the length. Like the snail's time stopping ability, it's such a cool idea, and I don't know if they thought of it and then they couldn't really think of good puzzles, or they had to cut the game short for some reason or something. But yeah, overall, it just didn't really, yeah. The game really doesn't have an awful lot of replayability. It ends with this tease of more to come, but, you know, the game's over 10 years old. Yeah, there's no collectibles, no unlockables, you know. I can imagine you could speedrun it, but it doesn't really have a mode that's specific for that. I don't know. I just don't think it would have been terribly difficult. Overall, I don't think that the game is like too short or something. Like, let's see. Yeah, How Long to Beat says it's like 2.4 hours, which was also around mine. I think mine's a little higher because, you know, my back means I have to take breaks, and the game doesn't save mid-levels, so yeah, I think mine is like 3.2 hours, and that's, yeah, simply, it would have been around 2.4. Am I starting to sound like super insecure about my time? I'm not. Anyway, yeah, I think the theme is really good. The story is fine. It's not like amazing or anything. It's very straightforward. Yeah, that might be it. Yeah, like the graphics are not, you know, photorealistic or something. They're not meant to be. It is an indie game, but there's a charm to them, and they work for what is supposed to be conveyed. Let's see. Right, apparently some people were really upset that you can't skip cutscenes. I mean, they're all so short. I don't know why you need... And they're not so frequent. Like, let's see, I think there's one at the start and or end of each level. That's it. You know, it's... Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it seems like people just want to find something to be annoyed by. Now... I think there was... Let's see... Right, one thing I definitely do want to make sure to say is the controls are at least a little too janky for the... Yeah. It's just... It doesn't feel as good to jump as it really needs to for a game with this much jumping. And... yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm not sure that I would say there were jumps I missed because of this, but it could have felt more, yeah, what's the word? Smooth. And, yeah. Let's see. yeah, both the jumping and the puzzles only really get tough near the end, and by then I do think it does do a pretty decent job of making you feel like you went through something. For a while I was worried, oh, this is just never going to get more complicated. I'm struggling to find it right now, but I did see someone say that it feels like a mix between a puzzle platformer and a point and click, because you have all these puzzles where you're supposed to find an object, use it in the right way, and such. And I do think that works fine for it, and certainly needed something more than just the for how much of this is fairly simple jumping. It needed the puzzles to be a little more complex. The puzzles, when I think jumping, platformer, the first things I think of are the Prince of Persia games and the Commander Keen games, because those were my childhood, the early ones, the early entries of the Prince of Persia. And this is not, the jumping is not as difficult for most of this game as in those, but the puzzles are more point and clicky than those games. Yeah, I think that does cover everything. Yeah, I definitely, I'd play something else from this developer. Let's real quick see. So it's Bedtime Digital Games. That's right. Figment. Where did I land on that? Did I end up intending to play? I don't remember offhand. Right. I foolishly put my lists in multiple different places, and now we have to wait. So I'm going to try to fill the dead air. Yeah, I think they do a good job making, like, it's said multiple times that the inventor, made a mistake and has he's going to try to fix things. I think they did a good job of making it not like super repetitive. Now, right, yeah, okay, so Figment is something that I'm also going to play, and let's see, yeah, so I will be playing more from this developer, which I'm quite glad about. And yeah, like I mentioned, it was also released as a mobile game, and you can definitely tell some mobile games do get complex. I don't want to obscure that, but this isn't particularly one of them. Yeah. Overall, I think the greatest value of this is the way that it conveys this thing of, we can change the future. We do have that power. And right, there was this one misogynistic joke about, like, there's a female character that you have to get help from that is, like, constantly on the phone, which, like, are we seriously still doing crap like that? Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'd rather someone who communicates a lot, like a number of women do, than people who don't communicate much at all, or only very, like, badly, not very clearly, and then act like you're somehow supposed to just read their minds and know exactly what they want. Like, so many cishet men. But yeah, overall it is a 7 out of 10. 7 trips back and forth between time periods in order to save the world out of 10.